We now move on to what was really, in fact, our next cave. We decided on Stump Cross, which is a show cave. There has been for, even at that time, something like 100 years. It had a main supply at 110 volts, and proprietor George Gill made us welcome. Really, we'd known him for years before that, and he was pleased to see what we could make of it. Knowing that we had 110 volts, we'd obtained a 4-light boom and 4 110 volt reflector lamps. We're getting our gear together there from my home, and Sylvia is sorting things out and putting them in the boot of the car. Jack Bradley and his wife Margaret were with us, and we soon made our way across the Stump Cross. The old hut at Stump Cross has been there, I suppose, something like 100 years, or approaching that, and it's been replaced by a rather magnificent building. At this time there was nothing really there apart from the hut and a flight of steps down into the cave. You go down the steps, I suppose, something like 60 or 70 feet, and the total depth of the cave is no more than 150. There's Jack Bradley there, fettling up the 2,000 candle power Tilly lamp that we had used at Ribble Head. Margaret there, Jack's wife, it doesn't look as if she's going into a cave. Jack has a last minute bit of sorting out to do, and we'll be on our way. Now we've arrived at Stump Cross, and you just get brief glimpses of the hut. My wife Sylvia and Margaret are going down into the cave, and they're acting the part of visitors. Jack Bradley is acting the part of the guide, and I think he'll be down here ready to welcome them. And there he is. Now he's coming out of what normally has a door across it, and showing them the various features of the cave. The old level of the floor, for instance, which was cut out to make access a great deal easier. I don't think visitors of today would welcome it as it was. Now that is actually the door, so we've got a bit in there twice, and Jack Bradley's letting them into the cave. It's quite a roomy passage, at least you can stand up in it, and as you go further on, you find other places of some interest. Now that shows the where you had to creep through before the level of the floor was reduced considerably. The stalagmite has formed on a rather sandy, gritty deposit. At this point the cave opens up appreciably, and we see some of the more entertaining features of the cave. We're looking now into the butcher's shop, a rather fanciful name, but some quite handsome formations. Going down to a slightly lower level, but still in the show cave. You can see some light beyond. You can look through there to the crystal fountain or crystal pool, I believe. Also a bit of George Gill's rather, I was going to say dicky sort of lighting, was a bit untidy perhaps. That of course is the Sentinel, probably one of the best formations in the show cave, where a stalagmite is met up with a descending stalactite to form a pillar. The chamber of pillars, of course, is another attractive feature, and a number of very fine formations. And it's at the back of this that the Reindeer Cavern was opened up. The baby's cradle, a bit more imagination there. And this led into a very, very fine cavern, which I think was opened up, really discovered by another CPC member in, I think, 1956. But after years of wanting to have a go at a passage that we predicted lay beyond, he did remove the final boulder in George Gill's absence, and the way was opened up. Quite attractive formations in one sort and another, and the film was another 100 ASA film, this time in colour, a bit on the grainy side, and it was 16mm, which was cut down in processing, as in fact 8mm film was, to make an 8mm film. But now I think we've got through to the final chamber, the chapel or the cathedral or whatever you like to call it. This is at the end of the cave where it was really cut off by the boulder choke. I think that is the old organ pipes. So that's one of the popular very nearly at the end of the cave, and there's quite a story attached to how the cave was extended by digging a shaft and opening the new cave up from the other side, just as George Gill had predicted. As far as you can see, it hasn't suffered any real damage by this treatment. We're going towards the end, and there's the boulder choke. Bit of a story there of the cave for visitors, and this has got well calcited over the years. Another rather fanciful name for the wedding cake. There's the wedding cake. It was largely conjecture on George Gill's part that beyond the boulder choke there would be an extension of the cave, and so there proved to be. You just got a very, very close, well, very brief glimpse of a reindeer skeleton that George had put into a cabinet with a glass front so you could see it. And it was one of a family of reindeer that was found in Reindeer Cavern. And Jack Bradley, again, his name crops up because he was a Batley dentist and he found the first bone. And George Gill arranged for some professional excavators, archaeologists, to see what there was. It turned out to be a small herd of reindeer, and one of them indicated the time of the year that they'd been, in all probability, drowned and washed in. There was a fetus indicated in the skeleton. Very brief glimpses again. I think we're on our way back, and we passed the ring of of the rather tuneful bit, and this is a rather nice part of the cave. I think it's called the Sandcastles. There's the odd pool of water there, but there's no active water flowing through the cave. That's a piece of truncheon, I believe, again. And there's just an odd pool of water here, and I wanted to indicate it because it was otherwise invisible. You can't really tell reflections from the real thing. This was quite an impromptu bit, because they were visitors who come into the cave and walked into view, which added a little bit of interest to what might otherwise have been a dull film. I think this is our Lady visitors making their way towards the entrance. Well, that was your visit to Stump Cross.